Welcome, everybody. It is me. It is the Cyber Warrior. This is CyberWarriorStudios, and I know you're all here for another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour. Now, before we get started, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, all those fun things. Let people know we're here. Get them in on a stream because it's going to be an amazing show that we have planned for you today. Now, saying that, remember all super chats and everything, all the ways that you can donate to the show. The majority of that is going to go towards youth football. I still got money to give them. All right, I'm just waiting to meet back up with them. They're still going to get more money because I'm going to help out the youth football organization where I live. So otherwise, please stay tuned. And I promise we are going to be back in here just about, 10 seconds as always. And we're back. See, told you, 10 seconds. Now, saying that, I got with me today the one and only Nathan Chung. Nathan, how are you doing this evening?
Doing great, and it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank
Dude,
you.
it is an honor having you on. I looked through some of your LinkedIn profile. You've been doing a lot of big things. So first and foremost, the one question that I ask everybody who comes on this show, what got you into cybersecurity?
For me, quite frankly, it was the trend at the time. Back in the day, I grew my career from the ground up, technician, sys administrator, and all the way up, and eventually it got to the point where security was hot. Like we all want to, get on that bull. Like back in the day when I first started cybersecurity, it was a huge deal, and there was a huge gap about open jobs. So I said, "What the hell? I want to get in." And also, I'm openly neurodivergent with autism, ADHD, and complex PTSD. I think in many ways, looking back, my personality was ideal for cybersecurity. It made me really ideal. Like for example, like there's some organizations throughout the world that recognize people like me and our particular skills. Like for example, I remember there's one country they have an entire military unit full of people like me, and because, for example, they could put in front of them a satellite photo. Like most normal people, they see, hey, it's like, what's the big deal? It's a satellite photo. They don't see anything. But for some people like me, some people like me, we can see a needle in a haystack. For that military unit, those guys can see based on the satellite photo, like, hey, this little dot here, that's the enemy combatant, or that little square, that's the target building. That's the enemy HQ, should bomb it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the big things, right? So you're like me, right? I came up the same way. At 36 years old, I grew up with computers, started fixing my first computer at like 7 years old. I came up with it. I learned the ins and outs. I didn't get into cybersecurity until about 04. But I had been in IT that entire time on my own, fixing computers, understanding operating systems and how they work. So, I agree completely. There are just certain mindsets that are phenomenal for cybersecurity, for IT, for system administration, because you notice nuances. And there's good and bad to that, though, right? When we talk about neurodiversity and talk about autism, and I'll touch on ADHD and things like that here in a minute, but autism especially, I have a nephew that's autistic. I have other friends, their kids are autistic. And when you're looking at the spectrum of autism and really how it branches out to what effect that'll have, there are certain variations of it where they can't be client facing. They can handle everything technical in the back end, but to put them in front of a client, they lock up, can't speak, or they speak too highly. They don't know how to bring it down to an executive level or more of a level that someone will understand. So, but then there's those on the opposite side where it's just enough that cyber's their niche. They can do it. They know the ins and outs and they can learn everything, but they're socially adept enough that they could still talk. They're more of those. They're what I like to look at as introverted extroverts or extroverted introverts, however you want to look at it, to where they prefer to be by themselves, but they can talk your ear off and tell you everything about everything that they do.
Absolutely. I'm also glad you brought this up because, in my view, the whole topic of neurodiversity is fast becoming a national security issue because you look at the current state of the world today. We have a war in Israel, we have a war going on in Ukraine. So what happens during wartime? Like if you look at it historically, like guys like Alan Turing, it is clear or almost undeniable that he had these conditions as well. He was probably autistic or with ADHD. Like that guy, he helped crack the Enigma code during World War II, and that was instrumental in shortening the war. So think about that. But what happens today? More times than not, people like me, we get demonized because when someone is different and they're not normal, people at the very least get uncomfortable, or if not worse, very hostile. I like to use that analogy of X-Men. I grew up watching the X-Men comics and TV shows. It's a very similar concept. When a person is different, you're not gonna be comfortable. You're just not comfortable.
I
And,
like to look at it. I like to look at it as and my kids get called weird, right? And kids are bullies, right? All kids are bullies. So if you like something off that maybe some other kid doesn't, or you act differently, you get called weird, strange, whatever. But I have come to the realization of what's normal,
so,
truly, because if we're all meant to think differently. We're all raised differently. We all have different trains of thought. No two people will ever be the same, even biological twins. Fraternal, I think it is. I don't know. Either way,
yeah,
the exact same. They look the same. You would expect them to be the same, but still, there are different nuances to them of how they think and perceive things. And so when you look at something like that, that whole idea of what's normal just blows my mind. And I'm just like, what's normal? Because my definition of normal is going to be different than what your definition is.
totally. And I'm happy you brought that up because remember it's this Miss watching Miss Marvel on Disney Plus. There was this awesome quote near the on the I think the season finale
Mhm.
where a guy was saying like, "How can he be normal?" And she responded, "There is no normal. There's just us and what we do. We've been given." Because when you think about it from a manager point of view, it really does come down to a similar concept. There is no normal. Every single person on your team is going to be different.
Mhm.
Just like in military, like ideally, like being neurodivergent is like having a specialization. It's like
Yeah,
you want to take care of your guys. Like if a guy is really good at with a sniper rifle, you're not gonna have him just be a non sniper or a
you're not going to make them a mech. You're not going to put them on
exactly
vehicles. Like
exactly.
why take and so not to cut you off, but because to that point, when it comes to autism, what I have found is everybody I know personally that is autistic finds a specialization. And I'll be damned if you don't find anyone that can beat them because you can't. They will key in and find every trigger point,
Correct.
everything that can be there. My sister used to take care of kids that were autistic and had different special needs. And there was a kid that loved cars. He knew every single dealership, who owned it, and what cars were in the lot. If those cars changed, he could tell you. And he'd be able to tell you from miles away what dealerships are coming up, what cars are in the front. And if you drove in front of it and a car was missing, he'd be like, "Hold up, this car's not there. Where'd it go?
Wow.
What happened?" So it's these things that people don't realize. And so I always look at, and ADHD plays a little bit into this because it's an organizational structure and the way the mind works. But I see ADHD and autism go together a lot more frequently than not. Um, but you key in and you are able to hyper focus in everything you do to almost put you at ease and put you at a comfort level is a specialization. Albert Einstein,
Absolutely.
Turing, any of the major minds. I'd even say probably Steve Jobs. All of
Yes.
these people had some form of neurodiversity
I
because that is what made them excel.
I totally agree. And it reminds me of the Apple commercial back in the day where it encourages being rebellious, being different. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that because a common theme in a neurodiversity community is essentially that being normal is boring. Like you want to be different. You want to be awesome. Like what's wrong with being awesome, right?
Yeah, I consider it. And when I talked to, forget who it was a few weeks back, maybe I don't know. I've had so many people. It could have even been a month or two ago. Um, we talked about neurodiversity and autism and ADHD being a superpower because you see these differences, you see these things that nobody else will see. And so, why would I ever, as someone who grew up breaking into wireless networks, but when they came out and do these different things, why would I want to be normal? If I could do something you can't, why would I want to be normal? I grew up as a computer geek and a jock. I love football. You put me at
Yeah.
linebacker, I could watch that running back and tell you exactly where he and that quarterback were going to go at any given time. That's where I specialized. I was good at it. I was damn good. But you look at how we go through life. I never wanted to be normal. I never wanted to
Exactly.
be just average.
Exactly.
I wanted to be the best.
Exactly. So one thing I do a lot of talks about this in conferences and podcasts and even write about it. The biggest One of the biggest challenges for people like me who have these conditions is acceptance. A
Hmm.
lot of people they talk about like being bullied or being treated differently by people at work, at home, but the first battle, and my what I tell people is the battle is within your own heart. You got to be able to accept yourself because if can't accept yourself, you can't. It's hard to expect other people to accept you.
You get back what you put out into the world. And if you
Totally,
are very negative about yourself, very down on yourself, if you do not accept yourself for who you are, if you don't have that confidence of I know what the hell I'm doing, then you can't expect anybody else because society and those that want to support you can only do so much before they're like, I got nothing left.
mm,
I can't give you my energy anymore because you are
mm,
no longer, you're not receiving it. And so you will see that a lot in that you have to learn that acceptance. If you don't, everything in life starts here. Starts
totally,
here. If you can't come together with who you are and accept who you are as a person, then it makes your life extremely difficult because you will see the bad in everybody.
totally.
You will think everybody is looking down on you, which at the end of the day, it's very likely they are because you are putting off this person, this energy, this aura of I'm a shit person. I don't know what I'm doing. Like I
Mm,
suck at life. Like so nobody's gonna want to be around you. So it may not be the autism. It may not be the ADHD or the OCD or whatever other, neurodivergent quality you have. It's the energy you're putting out in the world based on who you are and how you think about yourself. And that's a lot of times, I agree with you completely, Nathan. That's something we have to deal with on a personal level that we're so afraid to face because no one teaches us to face it.
totally, I agree with you. And switching gears real quick, the perception of people like me in the world is different. Like for example, in countries like UK, their intelligence services are actively recruiting people like me because they
Hmm.
see the value in the skill set, like be able to analyze and people to detect threats. Same
Yep.
thing, like in Israel, the Israeli military is also doing recruiting people like me. But what do we do in the U.S. and the other Western countries? We demonize people like me. They think people like me are weird. We're fucked up. We gotta do
Oh,
X.
dude, I'll be the first one to admit that growing up, no one taught us what autism was growing up, or ADHD,
Correct.
or ADD, or OCD, or any of these different things. So, as a child, and I think this is where a lot of the problems stem, as a child, when you are not taught what these things are, what the differences are, and you're just taught, oh, they're in special needs. And I went to a magnet school, K through 8 eventually. And so you had these special needs courses or classes. Now, some of it was, those that are mentally talented, have mental disabilities in that, they have Down syndrome or whatever the case may be. But some of it was just autistic kids that had a different way of learning and a different way of understanding and reading and everything else, or dyslexia or whatever the case may be. But if you weren't taught that, kids can be assholes. Kids are bullies. And so they're going to look at you as someone different. Oh, you're in that special needs class. You must be stupid, or you must be this. When the reality of it is, growing up, as I got older, I'm like, I want that homie as my friend. We're going to figure, I want to know what he knows or she knows, because it's better than what I got.
Yeah. Yep, totally. So I think I'm actually glad you brought it up, because in some households, how people like me are treated, it can vary, because
Mhm.
the perception in the public eye, even in the medical community, is that these conditions mainly affect white males. So if you don't fall into that category, like I'm not a white male, so people, the medical committee and in many committees throughout the world, perception is people like me or women or people of color cannot have these conditions because of that stereotype.
I hate stereotypes. I absolutely despise them because, again, we're all different. We all,
Totally.
and you don't know what that genetic history is. You don't know what has been passed down, because a lot of these traits are genetic. They come from somewhere in your bloodline. Um, and I'm gonna hit one more topic, then I got questions and comments I'm gonna throw up real quick. But on that note, you can look at certain families where in the family tree there was someone of African descent or Nigerian descent or Chinese descent or whatever. And so the child picks up traits from that. And people are like, oh, that ain't the dad's kid. She must have been sleeping around.
Ooh.
But the reality of it is, they have not done the research to know what their own bloodline is, or somebody lied along the way. And so when these traits get picked up, now all of a sudden people think something's off, when that's not the case. It's just a recessive gene or a gene that finally hit that child.
Mm.
It doesn't mean anything other than, in that family tree, these traits exist somewhere. You
Yes,
just never
totally.
did your own research.
Totally. And some people would wonder, like, how does one get these traits? And the answer is, quite frankly, it varies. Like,
Mhm.
for example, in my family, it's genetic, but for some other guys, it can happen due to things like accidents. Like, you could be just happy and normal in some sense, and next thing you know, drunk DUI, drunk driver, you get into a car accident, you hit your head. Then s- sometimes these conditions can manifest that way as well.
Yep, and I got stories on that one, because I've been
Oh
watching
boy.
some shows to learn all about that shit. So we are
Yeah.
going to touch on that, but first I want to hit a few things.
Okay.
Kerry
Great.
wants to know, he does have a question I want to get answered here. Kerry always comes with his questions, and look, homie, I'm gonna answer this one for you. I'm gonna let Nathan put in his 2 cents, or 10 cents, however long he wants to talk about it. But understand this, Kerry, try to make your questions a little more on topic every episode. You tend to get more personal about how you can get a job. So just putting that out there. But what do I need to do to find a job? I have attempted to apply for jobs and get ghosted. I have the A plus and now the Sec plus. I was told that it would be extremely hard. They said to try help desk. Nathan, what are your
Ooh.
thoughts?
Sadly, this I hear this a lot in the field, sadly, because there are a lot of managers out there who believe that in order to get a security plus, you need to learn the basic A plus, network plus. But a lot of people don't realize the world has changed. Like now, like AI is a thing, cloud's a thing now. So instead of like going through the like boot camp, getting A plus and learning all that, y- if you know that stuff, you can go straight to security. If you know your stuff already. That's my 2 cents. And also, what I wrote about a few months ago is you need for candidates, they need to differentiate themselves from the rest of the market. Like for example, build a lab, say in an interview, you build your lab, you test, you try new tools out, you want to keep learning. You'd be surprised. This has been that post was very controversial even on LinkedIn, where some
Yeah.
guys said straight that they hate that because it's this, it puts an undue burden on a person to go set up their own lab and be technical. It's like, but in my view, it's beneficial because it shows that you're willing to learn on your own and you don't have to be handheld.
Yeah, and I will say that, having when I'm hiring juniors, I can look at a resume. And some people don't understand this. If you build home labs, if you are doing contracting work or side work or something that is off the books, even volunteering for a library, whatever the case may be, that can go on your resume. Anything you do can go on your resume. All you have to do is make sure your resume is always tailored for the job you want. So, if you don't have necessarily experience, but all your education now is IT and cybersecurity, put that at the top of your resume. Don't put it at the bottom like
Absolutely.
you'll see in a lot of resumes. Put that at the top because that's what you want to be the focal point. Is I have my security plus, I have my A plus, I've built these labs, I've done X, Y, and Z. Under experience, same thing. I don't care that you worked for some machine shop if I'm hiring you for cybersecurity. I care if you have no experience in IT and cyber. Okay, do you have any experience in IT and cyber? If not, then give me something of how that job correlates to what I need you to
Mm,
do. And
totally.
so those are the biggest things. If I don't get any of that, if I look at your resume and see nothing IT or cyber, and you're just like, I want a job in cybersecurity, good luck.
You know,
I
I, I
like,
I'm really happy you said that because I totally agree with you there. Back in the day when I got hired into Microsoft, I was surprised when the hiring manager told me that he didn't care, literally didn't care about my 21 certifications or my 25 years of experience, or that I worked at places like Lockheed Martin or whatever. What blew him away is my volunteer work, my advocacy, my what do you call it, my podcast, and my just just helping the community. That carried more weight for him than all that other technical stuff.
and that's how I've gotten hired. That's how I've worked for the same guy at three different jobs now. Is because of my involvement with the community, the fact that me and him have had long discussions, and he knows who I am as a person and as a worker. So he knows no matter what, I'm gonna get the damn job done. I'm gonna find a way to do it. But if you don't have that rapport, then yeah, your resume better speak volumes to one facet of your life, either your education and your ability to learn, your ability to give back to the community, or you better be damn good at what you do. One of those
Absolutely,
three things.
absolutely,
So
and yep, totally agree with you there. And this brings to mind a lot. This brings to mind something that's also very important because everyone hears about the famous cybersecurity skills gap. That there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of available jobs, and you would think that we have with the war in Ukraine and now in Israel, there should be an increased demand for jobs, but what do we see instead? Layoffs. People are losing jobs. Like I literally lost my job today. But
I can't believe you lost your job today.
yep,
That's ridiculous.
yep. And I think at some level, it it terrifies some people because some people they they put their hearts into like learning security, going to school, getting a degree, and they think there's a job for them that's going to pay a six-figure salary, but that's not always the case. It's not the reality because yes, there are jobs out there, but it's like we term, it's a freaking flipping mess.
It took
Sometimes,
me a probably 2 years, 2 years in the field, and I had to change jobs once. It was my raise at the second job. So not the raise from changing jobs, the raise after a year that took me over six figures. So my first job out of the army, and we're talking four at the time, either four or five SAN certifications, a degree in computer information systems, um, plus being a cybersecurity or cyber network defender in the army, being in IT my entire life. My first job out of the army paid $62,000 a year.
whoa,
$62,000.
damn,
So, but when you've got a wife and kids, you can't just sit there and be like, I don't want it. No, 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 no. I'm taking it.
yeah,
I had no arguing. I had no battleground. I was like, I've been denied other jobs because I don't have the experience. So we're just going to go in here with experience in the enterprise world and take it.
Yep,
I
totally.
built from there. So you have to be willing to understand what you're applying for, understand where you're going, because I bid myself out of jobs when I first retired.
Mm.
I was like, I want 120. I want 110. I want whatever. And my dad literally came to me because one of the jobs I applied for, excuse me, their top salary was like 80 grand a year or something like that. And
Mm.
I went in saying I wanted 100. Now, instead of them giving me an offer and us, coming to an agreement, they just said no. And when I talked to my dad was like, "Oh no, I know who that was. They came and talked to me, and they told me why they didn't hire you, and it was because you were asking for too much money."
Mm.
So that was when I was like, "So maybe I gotta watch what I'm doing in the Pittsburgh area."
But
But
it,
it happens. We bid ourselves out.
yeah.
We're with cybersecurity. I should be able to get $150,000 in, Pittsburgh. No, not if you're in it up for a year. Sorry, homie. It's going to take you a little while.
But you know what? You make an interesting point. I think what's going on right now in the industry is we're going through a kind of like a reckoning. Cybersecurity salaries have been going so high for so long. In many ways, we're seeing like literally a reckoning where people want to rein that in. Like so, we were literally seeing a lot of companies cut. People are getting cut.
Mhm.
Cybersecurity jobs are getting cut. I know a lot of people like at the senior manager level and higher. They're getting cut and they're having a really hard time finding jobs
Yep.
because of these cuts. On the flip side, I think back to what you were saying, sometimes a high salary is justified. Like I'm not sure if you know that story, like where the in the Navy they were having problems fixing their brand new ship and their with the new engine, it's the new design. All their guys, all their guys couldn't fix it, and then they just bring in this veteran who's been doing this for like 20 years. He comes in, hits it with a hammer, done, fix it.
Yeah. Hey, Space Tacos. Thank you. Appreciate you. Love you. You've been on the show before. Love you to death. I know who you are. I do have another comment here though, and it's very true. And this try to get off the topic of
Okay,
salary and
sure.
careers and go back to the topic at hand. SAR and AR, Infinite and Probability AI. He notices a lot of ADHD folks see the forest but miss the trees, or see the trees but miss the forest, and it's never both. What's your take on that?
To be honest, this is the first time I heard that phrase, but overall, it's hard. Like even when folks like me apply for jobs or try to build a career, it's really hard because like some of my first jobs were in government. I worked at all three levels of the government, and what you see is essentially a system where it rewards people who are more, how I say, normal. Like if you think about it, even something as simple as going to a happy hour after work, common thing. But what you see there is people like me struggle to go there, and even if I do go, I would struggle like with all the lights, the loud music, and
Yep.
just the
Is
loud
that
conversations.
texture or the sensory overload?
Yep, exactly. And thank you for bringing that. But what happens? Like you go there with your boss, and with your bossy, they they have their eye out for who's fun, who's the great guy who gets great person who can talk to people and get along with people. Traditionally and systematically, people like that are promoted much faster because a lot of managers know they're manager material, whereas people like me who struggle in such environments were told later on, well, sorry, you need to be more social.
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to looking at the roles, and this is why I think even from an executive level, we need a technical person on the board, because once you get to that CISO level, right? It's all management. You've built up. You've now been a manager, a director, a senior director, a VP, whatever. So your hands haven't touched technology. You're missing that person who has been living on technology their entire career. And
Yep.
where people with ADHD and autism really excel is their face behind a screen, hands on keyboard, and let me fix your shit or break into your shit or do what, secure it, whatever I need to do. That's what I'm going to excel at. And so when you go to a board meeting, even though it may be hard, because it's only going to be once a month, or I don't know, maybe you had a breach, something happened, who knows? So maybe you're at 2, 3 times, you got to talk to these people, and you can sit there and break it down for them. But again, here's where what
Mm,
always holds people back. If you cannot break it down
mm.
kindergarten style, or
Yes.
as I like to say as a veteran, to be able to talk to Marines, then that's where you're going to struggle, because there's no level parallel to a board member. There's
Correct.
no
Yes.
technical level that's going to pay you that amount, give you the bonuses, and do everything that a board member gets. So if you are looking to do that, unfortunately, it's going to take a lot of doctor's appointments, psychological,
Yes.
and work on yourself to get to the point to be able to put yourself in those situations. Understanding that you have your social battery. You have
Correct.
that battery of, I can do this for like an hour, maybe two, then I gotta go to bed for a week. I'm out. See, I don't want to
Yes.
deal with nobody.
But you know what? You brought up an interesting point. What a lot of people don't realize is there is a flaw in the career path at many companies. Like for example, like what I've seen is typically like your entry level, then you go to mid level, then the high level, and eventually they want to push you into management. And I've worked at companies where some people are told either you go to management or you're fired. But if you think about it inversely, like a lot of people like me, we many people like me don't want to go to management because of
Right.
the issues you described. We're happy doing the technical work and we can do it all day.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I've talked to about at other companies I've worked for, is getting to a point where, and this was my issue in the Army. In the Army, I didn't want to lead people. I didn't want to be an NCO. I was an NCO, but I didn't want to be.
Mm,
And it's because I loved having my hands on the equipment. I didn't want
mm,
to have to worry about soldiers. I didn't have to want to worry about this person got a DUI or this person did that. No, no, no. I had my lane. I wanted to stay in it. But by the time I got in the Army, the specialist ranks were gone. You had Spec 4, E4,
mm.
whatever, specialist, everything else was gone. You went from E4 to NCO, and that was it. You went up the chain as basically management and leadership.
Yep.
So for me, yes, I lived that life. Yes, I was forced into it. And when I retired, I never thought I'd want to do it again.
Mm,
But after so many years, my mindset shifts. I realize I really like motivating people. I really like mentoring people and helping people. And I'd rather be there and be able to speak to clients on my person's behalf than have to sit there and be the one wondering if I'm doing shit right.
totally. And then what you said earlier, it made me think of something. There is a stereotype that exists that if you're autistic and you have social slash communication issues that you cannot become a manager or executive. That's
It's not true.
that's BS. Because the problem is when a person in a position of power has that stereotype, then it creates a barrier. In fact, one gentleman who was an executive at one of the major cybersecurity uh, organizations, he told me that himself. He would never hire someone like me with autism for a management role. That's rubbish. Because I know many people with these conditions who are thriving at the manager, director, VP level, and they're happy. They can do
And
it
it
and they're
really
happy.
just comes down to what you are able to communicate and how you communicate. And if you were willing to work on those communication skills. But some people have them. For some people,
Correct.
that is their specialty, is their ability to communicate. Again, it's all what your niche is. Me personally, I loved ones and zeros forever. They don't lie to you.
Yes.
They do exactly what they're told. There's no lies, there's no deceit. What is there is what is there. And if I could find a way to make those ones and zeros do something that the initial person that created it didn't intend it to do, but I know I can make it do, then I'm happy and I'll do it. But that's not a
Totally.
fault of the program. That's a fault of the person that coded the program, because all these things are designed by humans. So when you look at it that way, I loved computers for so long because of that reason. Because I knew they can't lie to me. What it says is what it says. What it does is what it does. And I can make it do things that maybe it shouldn't be able to do, but I'm going to make it do it. So,
Totally.
but the more I learned more about humanity and the more my mind shifted and the older I got, the more I realized that it's just not fun to me anymore. I like doing it, but it's not fun. It doesn't have that
Correct.
same pizzazz that it used to. But seeing someone like yourself, Nathan, or like Cyber Panda or Griffin InfoSec or Space Tacos or Jack Hewitt or Infinite Improbability or Carrie or anybody find their niche and excel and be able to go and know it's because me and them had a conversation. I said, yes, go do this. They went and did it, and there goes their career. That
Mm,
makes me happy. That is where I'm like, you know what? I really like the fact that I can do this now. And now that I'm in management, I can sit there and talk to my people and be like, oh, hey, so you want to do this, this, and this. And then when shit rolls downhill, I can do what I love doing, which is I'm going to take that load for you, homie. I will fall on the sword. I will take the blame. I will do whatever it needs. And then me and you are going to have a conversation on the back end, but you're not going to hear it from the client. You're not going to hear it from somebody that you don't need to be hearing it from. Me and you are going to have a conversation of like, look, hey, we need to fix this. This is what was wrong. Not your fault. I didn't teach you that. So we're going to go through and fix the issue. That's what I love being able to do, because I know there's so many young people out there that have ADHD and they just hyper focus on the wrong thing, that have autism and they don't know that, oh, they hit that rabbit hole and they're gone. They're like, oh, I wanted to do offensive security. I wanted to do pen testing. I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. Homie, I know you love rabbit holes as much as the next guy. I do too, but no, wrong one. You should have pulled back the rein.
Yes.
So I love being able to do that now because I have the experience in the field to sit back, relax, realize where these issues lie.
Totally.
And be able to communicate it and mentor and motivate others. And that's not for everybody.
Correct. By the way, I want to highlight something that Griffin InfoSec has brought up in the chat.
I have three other things highlighted, so we're gonna.
Oh, go ahead.
Let me get to it. We'll hit that comment. So I'll run through these real quick.
Okay, sure.
Cyber Panda, because it's part of the Panda gang. I love him. Love that he's back here tuning in. I totally agree with Nathan. He still doesn't accept himself sometimes, and he feels it. So let's get rid of that one. We all have those days where you just give your best, and sometimes that's your motivation. And he's not wrong. One of the things that I've said in the past, if you only have 20% to give 100% of that 20%. Give everything you got that day. Whatever it is, get everything you got that day. And it can literally be you getting up, making your bed, and going, I'm going to sit on the couch for the next 8 hours and watch TV. Whatever you got to give that day, just give 100% of it.
Yes, love it.
And then the last one that I had starred, even my own family told me I am stupid. I would never be a computer science guy. I left them all behind me, did my own thing, and I totally feel it. Cyber Panda, This is why I love you, man. I'm glad you're back here, because that's what it takes. Sometimes understand, and I'm gonna say something some people may not like, but that's okay. There is a common saying. It says blood is thicker than water. The true saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb, meaning the family you choose is always going to be stronger than that you were born with. Now, you can choose you're born with family. I'm not saying you can't. I love my family to death. My parents, my sisters, my in-laws, everything. I love them to death. But when they are toxic, there is nothing wrong with cutting them out, going about it, doing your own thing, and realize you're all my warriors and family too. So I'm here for every single one of you anytime you need it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get to that one you were talking about. You said, who said it? AR or Jack?
Griffin InfoSec.
Griffin, my boy Matt. Which one?
So I like what he talked about being on the architecture path.
Okay, yeah.
Because
thankful for the architecture path and being a lead, still avoiding management. Ooh, I've been there.
Yeah, because this is something that many of us, like even I, was not told that this is a valid path. But quite frankly, most organizations will not have an architect. But this is a very much valid path. This is the path that I have chosen for myself to avoid becoming a manager, because architects make a ton of money. So this is not, so you can stay technical and not manage people, and you can be happy.
Yeah, yeah, they do. You've got solutions architects. You've got now. What something people need to be wary of is, depending on the company you are applying to, that term architect could actually put you in sales.
Correct.
So be very, very wary when you're looking at job descriptions. Architects, enterprise architects, leads, things like that. Yes, you can, by all means, it'll keep you technical. You'll stay within your technical path, be hands-on. However, at some organizations, the moment you see architect, especially things like solutions architect, you enter into the, I need to write SOWs and be more in this sales route. So just be wary of your job descriptions. Some of these titles are interchangeable, so just be aware of that. But I completely agree with you, Griffin. Yeah, I'm that architecture path into being a lead, and it just basically means you're a specialist at that particular place. That's ideal for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Okay, and see what else. But yeah, I think I another thing I see is some areas are not very accessible for people like me because tying into neurodiversity accessibility is also very important. For example, I did a poll
What
on
do you
LinkedIn.
consider accessibility?
Yep, I'm gonna get into that. But to give you an idea, I did a poll on LinkedIn to ask people who are neurodivergent, who are similar to me, when they go to these security conferences like Black Hat, DEF CON, etc., do they feel that their disability needs are met? By and large, the answer was no, especially among women. I think a lot of people are not even aware of this because if a person has a disability and they're not comfortable going to a conference, they're shut out. It's like imagine if you're the best shot on your team is can't make it to the conference, like it's not
And I
fair for them.
think okay, so I kind of get where you're going with that. Um, and I do got a question here from Jack. Jack, I'll get to it here in a minute, but I do want to touch on this because I talked about sensory overload. When you're talking about
Absolutely.
things like Black Hat, DEF CON, B-Sides Las Vegas, and even some of your other B-Sides conferences, your larger ones, you have that sensory overload. You have people all around you. You have people talking. You have the everything else going on. And so if you don't have an area designated at the very least, or at least a few areas of you will not be loud here, you will not be drinking here or smoking or anything like that. If you don't have those particular areas, now I understand what you mean by accessibility needs in that context. Um,
Absolutely.
because I understand that more now because my nephew who loves airplanes can't stand the noise. So it's
Exactly.
let's get
Yes.
him those big, let's block out the sound of the or as much muffle as much as we can of like the F-16s and things like that. Let them go overhead. He can enjoy the scenery. He can enjoy what's going
Totally.
on, but doesn't have to be overloaded with his ears and with the sound. So
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I would think at these places it'd be very hard to find
Correct.
that
And
type of accessibility.
so high level, me and my friend Kat Contilla, we collected community feedback on what people would need at these conferences, and it was very enlightening. Things like closed captions, better signage, so you know where which room to go to, and also the to highlight what you were mentioning earlier to help with sensory overload. It's great to have a quiet room, so that way you can chill. And you'd be surprised, even people without disabilities, they were telling me that even they would benefit from that because even without disabilities, we get overwhelmed, we get
Hmm.
stressed out. Like we gotta chill. It's like it's good to have a quiet room.
Yeah, and without having to go back to your room, a
Yeah,
place that you
exactly.
can go, still be part of the conference, even if there's like a TV where the sound's off and it's just closed captions, whatever. Um, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I never even thought about that until we had this conversation. That would be amazing. A place where you
Yes.
can just everything's blocked out and you can decompress and just watch without any sound.
Yep.
That
Eh,
that makes a lot of sense.
Now where RSA got in trouble this year is they had a quiet room, but they just used their, I think it's called the religious room. So they got some flack for that, combining a quiet room with the religious room.
That yeah, because that makes sense. That's hey, at least they took a step. It
They tried.
may have been,
Yes.
two steps forward, one step back, but I mean, it's better than nothing. But yeah, that I could see that being problematic
Yeah,
because,
exactly. Yes.
um, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, the point is conferences should be accessible. That's why the vast majority of those who responded to my the poll and provide feedback, they said because conferences are not accessible, that's why most of them don't even go. And that's sad. They essentially
it
they lose
is.
out. They lose out on people meeting people like you, people like me, and networking, etc. And
Yeah,
and
that's tough
learning.
'cause I've never been to the larger conferences. Right, I've been to B-Sides St. Pete in their inaugural year. I spoke there. B-Sides Pittsburgh, I've been to like 3 or 4 times. and a few others in the Pittsburgh area. They're all smaller, and they're great. But even there, besides Pittsburgh's held at a casino. It's held at Rivers
Oh,
Casino every
wow.
year, and I love it. But I'm gonna have to take that back and talk to the people that run it, because I never even thought about that. Because me being me, I don't go to a lot of the talks. I go there, I drink and network. That's what I do.
Yep,
I will
exactly.
literally
Yep.
go down, drink, grab some beers because I get tickets, and I'll sit down at the slots and network with people and
Hmm.
talk to the smokers and things like that, and the people that are just hanging out. I never thought about the accessibility factor of it, and that's just because me, I've been able to adapt to everything.
Hmm.
I've pride myself on being able to do that, but not everybody's raised that way or has been able to get that support and that help to be able to do that. That's
Correct.
you gave, dude. I am now going to have a conversation with the people that set up B-Sides Pittsburgh and let them know, because that is something that would be huge to garner more support for these smaller conferences that are just trying to get on the level of like a B-Sides Las Vegas or a
Yep.
ShmooCon or whatever. Um, yeah, that would be huge, because it
Yep.
would allow people with, accessibility issues. And again, not we're not, and I think it's because people don't think about the neurodiverse side of it. When they think
Correct.
about accessibility, they're thinking wheelchairs or crutches
Correct.
or whatever, the physical, the things you can see, not the mental.
Correct.
And
Because
you think I'd
it's
know better,
invisible.
because not all disabilities are visible.
Correct. You make a good point. Like even when I go to the airport to travel, like when you see the disability sign, it's a picture of a person in a wheelchair. So more times than not, just saying the word disability, the stereotype is a physical disability. But there are
Yep.
many of us out there, including myself, that have who are neurodivergent, who have invisible disability. Then we don't get enough attention. That's the sad truth of it.
I can't even, dude. It's somebody who fights for everybody to belong and find their space and find the fact that that bothers me personally, that I never even thought about that, because I come from, my nephew can't handle sounds, can't
Mm.
eat certain things, can't
Hmm.
do certain things because of texture or sound or just being in it. And it took years of him growing up in a crazy ass family and getting him the help that he needed to be able to just be able to handle for an hour or two being with our crazy ass family.
Mm.
And so now we know when his limits are, and we're like, okay, go to the room, like go lay down, go do what you need, get by yourself, because we know you need it. And even my oldest, like he can only handle so much socialization. After, so many hours, his battery's drained. He's like, Dad, I just want to go to sleep. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. And so I think about that more on a personal level. And now that you've mentioned it, now it's going to bring me more to a professional level of like,
Nice.
now I gotta find a way to like help out in that area, because I see it personally with my own family, let alone with others.
Yep.
And so being able to make that change, Nathan, we'll talk about that later. That's something I think me and you can work
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
and help change.
But you know what? You wrap another very important point for managers. It's also it's I've been a manager for it. It's a pain sometimes because you got to worry about not worrying about offending the person for all these various reasons, like there's race, but not LGBTQ plus, and just a myriad of issues, like kind of like landmines.
Yeah.
But for neurodiversity, for managers to manage people like me who are neurodivergent, it's not rocket science. It's literally similar to what you described. You just got to reach out to the person, ask them one simple question: "What do you need?"
Hmm.
Just simple question that cross every cross all those landmines. It literally disarms all those landmines, and people will be more open to responding and say, "Hey, I need like to work from home sometimes," or they need captions and small things. Because overall, you help your team members out, give them what you need. They're more effective. Bam, they're better workers.
I like it. I like it. I think that'll hit a lot too. And I do want to touch on more of the we're at 10 till. So I
Mhm.
mean, my show can go till whenever. I really don't care, but I at least want to hit on it. Um, ADHD. I've talked about it a lot.
Absolutely.
A lot of people in this industry suffer from ADHD, in that they either can't focus or they hyper focus. So you either have to worry about them doing nothing or doing way too much and not eating. What has been, being that you're ADHD
Yep.
and you do also have PTSD, but let's hit the ADHD first. What has been your experience with that, and how do you think it has helped you and hurt you? Because we know it's done both.
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, people like me, we often get to what's called kind of the zone, like where you're so focused that you actually get more work done in a shorter period of time. So if you think about it from a manager, from a workforce point of view, that's a good thing. Like if you're focused on like detecting the bad guys through through the sim, that's a good thing. 'Cause a common theme in cybersecurity and just like in warfare is this, the sooner you detect the bad guys, the sooner you can shoot. So if you have your SOC analysts who are hyper focused, more power to you. They could probably win that fight over someone who's not so much. To give you a really good example of this, I worked at a retailer once, and we had our VP was getting locked out of his iPhone because I discovered like we were all going old school and just looking through all the security logs, and because I'm able to find the needle in his stat because of my neurodivergence, I was able to see in the logs that he had a cached old password in his phone. That's why he's getting locked out. I figured that out in maybe 1 hour of looking old school through raw security logs.
Hmm.
I had a teammate jump in from NSA train who was 15, at least 10 to 15 years my senior, who was a hell of a lot smarter than me. It took that gentleman the entire day of doing the exact same thing to come to the same conclusion.
Yeah, and that's and I got a few comments on that too. Um, but I agree. It can, and Jack did ask a question, but he did say this too, which is very valid. It leads to tunnel vision too and missing smaller things around the target.
Correct.
And so, to your point, you were dealing with a lockout issue, but when you're dealing with an actual incident, you can become too hyper focused on the initial causation
You know
or
what?
causality or
You
whatever the
you
term
make a
is,
good
and
point.
miss those side effect things that happen.
You make a good point. I think one analogy I would like to point out was you can think of it kind of like a sniper. The sniper's guy holding the rifle and he's focused on the target. Of course, he can't see the other stuff around him. That's why it's good to have a spotter and his other teammates to support him. So
Yep.
if you think of it that way, that guy with a sniper rifle, that'd be a good representation of ADHD. You're hyper
Oh yeah.
focused on the target.
I like that idea because again, me and I got Veterans Day, I think next week. So I'm gonna have to find some veterans that want to come on this show next week. So if you're listening or
Absolutely.
know any vets, please have them tag me, DM me, whatever. I want to get some vets on next week. I want to have a bigger. I try to do bigger shows for holidays, and to me, Veterans Day will always be a holiday. So we're gonna try to do it big. But yeah, that's spot on with even your snipers. Your snipers are hyper focused. They're on the target. What's the wind speed? What's this, and this? And they got their spotter to say that. And then they got someone else that's in their ear saying something else. So yeah, spot on. I like that idea of thinking your ADHD or even autistic, and autism people as being your snipers, and everybody else, the supporting cast,
Mhm.
being I'm able to see everything else that you don't see
Yep.
because you're going to see and focus on this. I need to be able to have people that can focus on everything else. I like that idea. Great analogy.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you for that one. I'm going to use it because a lot of my military friends will understand it. I
Absolutely.
am. I do have a question here from Jack, and I love Jack to death. How do you rein in that rabbit hole trip and get back on track?
So that's a great question, Jack. One very simple tool is a timer, because one huge source of distraction is, of course, the internet itself. Like when you see the news and some sites, it's literally designed to suck you in and keep pressing and looking at stuff. So the countermeasure to that is literally a timer. Like if you know, like for example, your wife or your partner or your kid needs you to do something in 15 minutes, set a timer for 10 minutes. Make sure you don't miss the deadline. The
I
timer will
like
help
that.
you with that.
So you're looking at more of, and this is the what's that method? I can't think of the name of the method, but it's like 20 minutes of one thing,
Oh,
take a break.
you're talking about Pomodoro.
Yeah. And you can set your own limits, right? 20,
Correct.
20, 10, 20, 20, 30, 10, however you want to do it. But you set your limits on how long you're going to focus on something, then
Correct.
stop and switch to something else. That's actually a great way to think about it of,
Yes.
I'm going to do this. Then in that 10, 15 minutes, however long I give myself as a break, was it a rabbit hole? Did I find anything? No. Okay. I can switch to something else. And if you even completely context switch, so let's think about this from a pen testing standpoint. Oh, I found this, it's a potential vulnerability. I went through, did all this research. Oh yeah, it's got to be, but I haven't found a way in. You take a break, you go to something else. You get away from that box, get away from it completely, go to something else. And by that next break, if you have not thought of a different way to do things there, then okay, keep digging.
Bingo.
But if you have, if you're like, oh wait, this port was open with this service, let me research this service now, it gives you more time. So great
Bingo.
idea. Pomodoro Method, great way for getting back on track.
And here's something a lot of people might not realize: a Pomodoro timer is built into Windows 11, so most of us
I
have it
think it's
already.
on the newer iPhone apps too. I
Correct.
think,
Yep.
or you can download it.
think.
One of the two.
Yep.
But I
Yep.
believe it's there.
Yep. But a lot of people don't realize it's built into Windows 11. I think that's where Microsoft has made a lot of stride. They built a lot of accessibility tools straight into Windows 11. That way, it's like we have it. It's in there.
Yep, I've seen it. I don't use it. I should. I don't.
I
But I
agree.
should.
I don't either.
I got another one here from
Great.
Griffin. Even just overcrowding at places like DEF CON can affect folks with PTSD.
Yes.
And depending on what form of PTSD you're thinking of, because there's various things that can trigger PTSD, absolutely correct. Crowded rooms, objects laying on the ground, whatever. From a military standpoint, if I see a bag laying on the ground, it may not affect me, but I've got a lot of brothers and sisters that it would affect.
Yeah.
They see some bag nobody's by, they're going to get, homie, I ain't walking by that. We're going to have issues. So I can see how crowded rooms and things like that can affect people. Those who can't handle crowds at all. We haven't delved much into your PTSD, Nathan, and I don't know if you want to go too deep into it. But would that affect something like overcrowding? Would overcrowding trigger that for you?
It's sometimes it's more so for like the ADHD, because hearing like an army of voices in a crowded room, it just drains me. It just totally. That's why, like for me, like at the conferences, one of the worst places are the vendor gallery. You know, like an RSA where they have all the vendors set up, and they're all trying to sell you stuff. That's literally like for me, that's literally like going through a minefield.
I can see that. I mean, it's a minefield for me for different reasons, but yeah, I can see that. I grab all the swag and walk away, or make friends that want to buy me drinks. That's why it's a minefield for me.
Yep. And back to the other question you were having about how these conferences affect people is one solution to that is it's a simple thing. It's good to have a buddy with you.
Yep.
Just think Air Force, like a Top Gun. It's good to have a wingman with you, so that if you feel like you're gonna pass out or you're gonna have a meltdown, it's good to have a buddy to get you out of there.
Yeah, and I think that's with everything, and we lose sight of that. So in the Army, we called them battle buddies. In the Air Force, they were wingmen. I'm sure the Marines and the Navy have their own sayings for them, and in the Coast Guard and the Space Force now. Space Force might call them aliens. Who knows? But at the end of the day, even throughout life, if you look at your life in general, you will not always. Some people were loners. They never really had that friend, that person they can count on. But as you go through life, eventually, I would hope, and I know it's not everybody, but I would hope that you find at least that one person that is your partner in life that you can count on for whatever. They're always there. Your true ride or die will be there forever. That's the person, even if they don't like what you do or they don't understand what you do. They like you as a person. That may think you're batshit crazy for talking cybersecurity, but you know what? They're willing to go have a few drinks and hang out with you at a conference. Take their ass with you and have that person, because no matter what goes on, they can do the same to you and take you places, and you get each other's vibe, and you never feel alone, and you are never out of your element, because you have that person that can center you and really bring you back to where you're at. And for people with PTSD, think of it like a service animal. for a lot of my
Totally.
military vets that have service animals and things like that. You know, that guide that can just, you know, they see you stressing out, they sense it, and they're like, "Look, homie, we're gonna back up over here. I'm gonna pull your ass. We're coming over here, or we're gonna chill out." I think that you're pointing to a battle buddy, and again, whether it's a service animal or an actual
Mm,
person, by all means, do it. Hands down, every time. You should never go anywhere alone, especially at
totally.
conferences. Last one I have starred, and then I'm sure I've got more comments down here I gotta look at. You do more ADHD. You do more of what you like and less of what you must do.
Totally.
Yeah, I do that so much.
Because you know
Do
what,
you
this
how often
yeah,
do you fall victim to that, Nathan?
yeah, a lot actually. Because old school, like just think going through school, like if you don't like certain subjects, old school mentality is you must be stupid, but that's wrong. Like, for people like me, it means that you're not interested. You don't really give a rip about certain subjects. And in this career field, it applies too because there's so many different jobs and skills. So a lot of it comes down to choosing what you want to do. The painful part is technology is evolving so quickly that what we like doing today might be obsolete by tomorrow. Because like
It
one
was
of my
obsolete yesterday. By the time
yeah,
they came
exactly.
out with it, it was already obsolete. Don't worry.
To give you an idea, one of my very first jobs was working for the police in Hawaii for their PD, and there were a lot of guys there. They were still attached to their typewriters.
Oh my goodness. On
Yep.
that note, I saw a real meme, TikTok video, whatever. And it said when your college professor doesn't allow you to bring laptops to class and homie's in there with a typewriter. Not a laptop. And he's in there typing. I'm like, I would be that asshole. Let's
Yeah,
not lie. That would be me. But
that's
it's so
hilarious.
comical because whatever it takes is what they're going to do.
Absolutely.
And so we are at the top of the hour, Nathan. So as I always do on this, the very last thing I have any guests do for all those that are trying to break into the industry, what advice do you have?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think the biggest one is because the reality is if you notice a lot of those training providers, they're slow to catch up to cloud. Cloud is a huge deal now with AI because literally most of the AI solutions coming out nowadays are going to be based in the cloud. So instead of learning like A plus, Network plus, if you want to go future proof your career, go straight to cloud now. Go straight to cloud now. You have a greater chance to future proof, get a higher salary, and differentiate yourselves from the competition.
I agree with that. I am very cloud adverse. I don't like the cloud. I think it's somebody else's computer. But at the same time, I recognize where the world is going and how things are
Exactly.
going and know how important the cloud is. So I will always say if you cannot afford or do not want to take the basic certs, A plus, Net plus, Security plus, whatever the case may be, if you can't afford CCNA, things like that, go look at Azure, please.
Absolutely.
Azure, Microsoft has free training for some of their basic cloud certifications. And I think their basic cloud certifications, if they're not free, they're minimal, like
Correct.
maybe a couple $100, which for some people that's a lot. Don't get it twisted. I know that's not cheap, but if you're looking to break into this field, considering the alternative, it is cheap. So I look at it on the
Yes.
basis of what's out there. But yeah, Azure is a great way to go. The only difference between Azure and AWS, the reality of it is naming. How they
Correct.
name things. They are the exact same thing, just how they name things is different and how they present information is different. AWS has Security Hub. Azure
Yes.
has a legit SIM called Sentinel. So
Pretty much. Yeah.
I hate Security Hub with a passion. I literally hate it. But yeah, so cloud is it's the way to go these days. I
Yep.
agree with you 100%. But the flip side to that is at the very least, learn your foundations. The only way
Yes.
you will be able to
Absolutely.
learn cloud because it is a shared security model is know your foundations. Know
Hmm.
that I have to be able to program ACLs in a firewall. I have to be able to understand what port 443, what port 23,
Oh,
what port
absolutely.
22 are. So I stand by the fact, even if you don't get a Security Plus or a Net Plus, understand and learn those foundations
I
before
agree.
you get into securing the cloud.
Actually, on that note, I'm not sure if I told you, I'm teaching Security Plus to transitioning veterans in night school, and big thing I noticed, like Security Plus today, compared to when I took it back in 2007, they have all that stuff in there already. You have cloud now, you have threat intelligence, you have privacy, all that's in Security Plus now. So if you go Security Plus route now, you have a good foundation as is.
Yeah. Yeah. Security Plus is solid. I still have my lifetime cert. I'm never getting rid of it. I never
Me too.
converted it to CEUs.
Me
Fuck
too.
that. Got it in 08. Never converted it.
Yep, same
Griffin
here.
InfoSec, we can fight, homie. The cloud is the cloud. It's somebody else's computer with different names. I don't want to hear it. We can fight all day. Love you to death. Thanks for being a subscriber, by the way. But otherwise, Nathan, thank you for coming on. It's been my honor and pleasure having you here. Feel free to hang out. We'll talk
Absolutely. Yep.
off air.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Otherwise, look, all those in the audience, please take care. Enjoy yourselves. Have a fantastic weekend. If you're watching this after the fact, everybody else watching, please like, comment, subscribe, share, all those fun things. And feel free to check the description for how to connect with Nathan Chung and donate to CyberWarriorStudios. Y'all take care
Yep.
now.
Thank you.